Welcome, 8th graders. I am so excited to dive into today's explainer with you. I want you to think for a second about the last time you watched a house being built, or maybe you've seen the blueprints for one. You wouldn't just start throwing a roof up before laying the foundation, right? Well, believe it or not, reading and writing work the exact same way. Today, we are learning the actual blueprint of how authors build texts. We're going to decode text structures.
Now, this brilliant idea of structure, it doesn't just come from English teachers. It is actually a deeply biblical principle. 1 Corinthians 14 verse 40 tells us, "Let all things be done decently and in order." And just as God desires order in His creation, from the vast solar system all the way down to the tiny cells in our bodies, authors use specific order to make their messages crystal clear to us. God is a God of order, and becoming a truly great reader means learning to recognize that order.
So here is our roadmap for today's lesson. We'll look at order in our reading, why text structure matters, cause and effect, problem and solution, compare and contrast, and finally, we'll wrap up with our godly learner's philosophy.
Section 1. Order in our reading, built with purpose.
Okay, so there's a fundamental truth you need to know about good writing. Authors don't just throw random facts at you and hope for the best. No, every single paragraph is organized with a purpose. Informational texts, which is basically what you read every single day for school, are built in a structured way that helps us organize ideas and easily follow the author's message. Honestly, guys, recognizing this organization is literally the ultimate cheat code to understanding any assignment. When you know how a text is built, you know exactly where the author is taking you. It makes reading way more effective and, let's be real, a whole lot less frustrating.
Section 2. Why text structure matters. Real-world benefits. You might be wondering, why does this academic skill actually matter in the real world, outside of just passing a reading test? Well, you encounter informational texts everywhere. We're talking school reports, news articles, science textbooks, even those little instruction manuals when you get a new piece of technology. And if you want to know how recognizing structure strengthens your reading, which, by the way, is a major hint for one of your homework questions, here's the answer. Skilled readers use text structure to anticipate what's coming next. When you understand the blueprint, you can actually read faster, you stop missing the important points, and it massively boosts your overall comprehension.
Think about this for a second. If you don't recognize the structure, how might you misunderstand the way the information connects? It's kind of like walking into a movie halfway through. You might think an author is just listing out random facts, when they're actually trying to warn you about a really serious problem. You could miss the true meaning entirely.
Section 3. Cause and effect. Relationships and results.
And that brings us perfectly to our very first common structure, cause and effect. This is a structure that explains relationships between events or ideas. It shows exactly how one action produces a specific result. It helps us trace the direct impact of actions and events. You'll see this all the time in science or history, like an author needs to explain exactly why a historical war started, or maybe why a specific chemical reaction happened. It literally connects the dots from the starting action directly to the final outcome.
Let's look at how this works in practice. Say you're reading a science article about climate change. Step 1, the cause is burning fossil fuels. Step 2, the effect is an increase in greenhouse gases that trap heat. The crucial point here is knowing how to spot this structure in the wild. Authors leave us little clues called signal words. If you're reading along and you see words like because, as a result, or therefore, you are absolutely looking at a cause and effect structure. Definitely make sure you jot those signal words down for your homework because they are going to be your best friends when analyzing difficult texts.
Section 4. Problem and solution. Fixing issues.
Moving right along to our second structure, problem and solution. This one does exactly what it sounds like. It helps us see an issue clearly and then explores possible ways to address or resolve it. This structure is incredibly common out in the real world. Think magazines, the news, text dealing with big societal issues. The author wants you to understand that something is definitely wrong, but they don't just leave you hanging there. They offer a way to fix it. Let's look at a real-life text from a health magazine, which is another great example for your homework notes, by the way. On the problem side, the author might dive into the rising issue of childhood obesity, laying out all the negative impacts on a young person's health. Then, they pivot. They move over to the solution side, giving super actionable tips for balanced diets and regular physical activity. The entire article acts like a bridge, walking the reader away from the danger of the problem and straight into the safety of the solution.
Section 5. Compare and contrast. Finding differences.
Finally, let's talk about compare and contrast.
This structure is designed to help readers clearly see the similarities and differences between subjects. It is totally perfect for when an author wants to analyze history or maybe show the pros and cons of two different ideas. Or, and this answers another one of your homework questions, when they want to weigh two competing scientific theories against each other so you can clearly see which one actually holds more merit.
For instance, a history textbook might use this exact structure to compare democracy in ancient Athens on one side with modern democracies on the other. And just like we saw with cause and effect, authors use very specific signal words to guide you through it. When you're reading and you hit words like similarly, however, and in contrast, the author's basically flashing a giant neon sign that says, hey, pay attention, I am comparing and contrasting right now.
Section 6. Godly Learner's Philosophy, Wisdom and Truth.
Okay, so we've covered the academic mechanics, right? We know how texts are built. But now let's look at the spiritual application of our learning as students of HeroesMart Academy. Romans chapter 8, verses 6 and 7 says, "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." 8th graders, as you master these advanced reading skills, you are becoming sharper, faster, and way more capable. But keeping our minds spiritually centered, that is what brings true life and peace as we pursue this academic excellence.
And this really brings us to the core of the HeroesMart Academy philosophy. We intertwine biblical morality with education for a very specific, absolutely crucial reason. Education without morality can actually hurt. Just think about it. Intelligence all by itself, it just makes a person more capable. And sadly, sometimes that just makes people capable of doing the wrong things more effectively. But knowledge and intelligence, when combined with God's wisdom, empower you to make righteous, God-honoring choices. Your intelligence absolutely must be centered on truth and wisdom.
So, I want to leave you with this final challenge today. You now have the tools to decode complex texts, to really understand the order and structure of all the information swirling around you. But the real question is this: will you use your newfound reading skills simply to be smarter, or will you use them to grow into a wiser, God-honoring leader? Pursue academic excellence, for sure, but always, always keep your mind centered on God, truth, and righteous choices. Have a fantastic rest of your day, students, and happy reading.